Hello. Welcome, everyone. Please have a seat.
No. Only one person? Wow.
Hot. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the first City Input Workshop. I'm Shubha Jangam. Welcome. I'm a senior planner at the city, and I'll be leading this project. So if you have questions, you can email me or call me. With me, I have a team of experts. We have Director of Community Development, Robert Buscemi, Zoning Manager, Robin McDonald, planners, Jackie Lim, and Tracy is here, and our consulting partners from TSW, Tom Wash and Ryan Snodgrass is here. And we have a select steering committee members here. Please see their names on the backside of agenda in your handout. We also have stakeholders, property owners, and adjacent property owners here. Thank you very much for your interest in this project. This is a small area plan development effort, and the district includes only 22 parcels, as you can see on the maps in the room. But we all know that the impact of this project is beyond these 22 parcels. So please stay engaged with this planning effort. And today is really all about getting direction from you and the community. We will be having 2 more workshops on this, and we'll be gathering input and creating the concept plan. Today we're going to use a live survey tool called Mentimeter. So please have your phones ready. We have Wi-Fi passwords printed all over the room. Please refer to them. Another housekeeping is this Parks and Recs Advisory Committee meets here at 6 o'clock, so we should stop on time. And we have a lot of ground to cover, so I would like to invite Tom to get started.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am excited about being here, and I want to say that I've been here since the very beginning. When I don't know anybody know Lou Oliver, when the original master plan was done, our firm was with Lou on that, and we did the coding for the project, and have continuously been involved in the writing and dealing with the code for your town. So I've had the privilege of seeing the town grow and see Crabapple going in the direction that it's going in. We recently, a couple years ago, completed the Crabapple placemaking plan, and we had an extraordinary turnout of landowners, concerned citizens throughout that really directed us in coming up with what, if you review that plan, what's there today, and you're seeing that in to come to fruition to some degree based on what's being developed today. Based on some of the drawings that we did. Now, we just came up with sketches, and then ultimately developers came in and changed even some of the plans that we did. But the road system that's there, that's the road system that we ultimately developed. So I'm excited to see how that works in planning. What I think made it successful was you all did engage, and you were with us through that whole time. So we have an agenda today. Ryan is going to do the bulk of this presentation. As it was just stated a minute ago, we're going to do some questionnaires. We really need your direction today. We're not going to design anything. We're going to show you some examples of design in this area that might be based on the code, but that's just to get your feedback, not present it as a design. That'll help us when we come, the next time we come back, we're going to come back with some very rudimentary designs, and then have you sit down with us just like we did on the small area plan, hopefully in a room where I can sketch and do sketches while you're sitting here, especially the landowners and all developers that might be interested in, and people that are concerned about how it ultimately is developed. So with that, I'm going to give a couple slides. We need to go up. So as is pointed out, we have 22 parcels in the site, and we have the maps up through here. Be sure at the end of this process, we're gonna have about 20, 30 minutes left at the end of this. If there's anything that's off, let us know. We have stickies, we have pins that you can certainly help us mark that up. But this is what we've researched: 11 individual landowners, a total of 17.83 acres with 22 parcels. So obviously that's hard to read from this point, but again, we have 3 maps up through here. Please look at that at the end of this and give us any feedback if there's anything incorrect so we can correct it for the next time around. So the project intent today is that what we're doing is we're taking the zoning that we've written in the past, looking at that, the comprehensive plan, you have to take that into account, certainly when you're doing a plan like this. Any existing plans, that's the plans that we did recently when we did the crabapple part. This is in one of those 4 quadrants. We had 4 quadrants. This was in one of those quadrants. And then the place making impact of this that we'll look at. So we're going to look at plausible development strategies and then related to the UDC update that is occurring right now. So plausible development strategies, what is that? We're like I said, we have existing code. So we want to look at the code today, and what we've done is we've taken the pieces of land that are there and use it, and only did the design based on if it was landowners. We didn't put a design into somebody else's land that it can be developed. So all of this is, again, Ryan will explain that to you, but we wanted to have one plan so we can get some feedback from you. It's so important to get that kind of feedback. And then the second concept plan is your input today that will help us develop from concept 1, concept 2 to make you a strong plan that is acceptable to the community, to the city, and so forth. So I'm going to turn this over to Ryan.
Again, my name is Ryan Snodgrass with TSW. So be helping to facilitate this effort today. And with that, like Tom said, there'll be 2 plans developed from that. We'll see plan 1 today, some options that we'll discuss in a moment. But before we jump into that, there's one last slide that we wanted to go over and just share our general project schedule so everybody knows what to expect, the timeline. So it's going to be a quick process. We want to wrap up in May with having things being voted on in June with council. So please just keep an eye out on emails and communications during this span of months to make sure you're up to date on everything that's happening. And a little bit of a breakdown from that so you kind of know what's happening. Based on those phases, there will be engagement activities, obviously. This is the first of many that will happen. So today we're in the city and stakeholder work session. That's in phase 1. The next block on the timeline is the phase 2 that you see there, where we'll develop that concept 2 based on input today. And there'll also be a public design workshop to help further develop that plan. And then so on. You see how we're going to march this process out with the final city council presentation in that phase 4, which is expected to happen in June. Specifically today, what are our goals? We're going to present some background information and give a little bit of kind of foundational information is what we're going to share in the first half of this meeting. And then the second half of this meeting is really about these meeting goals. It's establishing the desired programming. And I know we're not going to cement that today, but y'all are going to help us understand the direction it needs to go. we'll take it back to our office, refine a little more, and then bring it back to the public and get more input. These goals will have 2 rounds of public input, with this being the first one. So that's establishing the programming, getting an idea of the desired architectural character, identifying historic aspects of the property that should be represented or preserved, and so on, the connectivity needs and the green space needs. There's going to be a series of questions that we'll be asking, and that's how we're going to get the feedback today. So everything today is digital, essentially. And so we're using a program called Mentimeter. If you never used this before, it's easy, so don't worry. But I would invite everybody to pull out their phones or their tablet, anything that's connected to a web browser, and go to menti.com. That is MENTI.com. Once you're on that website, there should be a pretty simple page that just asks you to fill in a number. And that's the code that you see on the screen. For those that, I know this is a little small font, so I'm just going to read it out. 37580154. And I'll say it one more time in a moment. Again, that code is 37580154. Once you enter that code, this question should pop up on your phone. So from now on, the presentation is in your palm, literally. And you can see we're getting live results. So this is a great way to get feedback and engage with a group like this. So these are just some warm-up questions to make sure everyone can get familiar with the program that we're going to be using today. Please raise your hand if you're having any troubles, and someone from staff will assist. Okay, I think we're good. Absolutely. The code is 37580154. Sure. Would you have them register? This is purely a warm-up question. This isn't anything that's going to be taken for analysis or put into a report. I just want to make sure. I mean, fair point. Thank you for bringing it up. But yeah, it's not going to be documented. And we have one more warm-up question, just to make sure you start to see how this program works. There's another tool that allows us to do live feed. So at this question, you will type in your response, and you should start to see the feed up on the screen. Once the screen fills, it will start scrolling. Or it should start scrolling. I'll do it manual. Okay, great. Looks like we have 29 responses. So to this point, questions after this are going to be for our research. So please do answer them as you feel. And the questions from now on will be documented for our research. So before we get onto those, raise your hands again if anybody's having problems with the programming before we get to data that will be used. Yes. Yep. All right. Great. Okay.
There's a question. Do you have a question?
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So as the slide says, these first set of questions is about just general feedback for us, the out-of-towners, want to know what the residents feel about the area today. What is your opinion? So within the boundaries for this project known as the District of Mayfield, what are unique attributes of this district? Something that we may not be aware about. And it may seem obvious to you, but it's not to us. So don't let that worry you. Just put in anything that you think is a unique attribute to this district today. Okay, great. We're getting some responses. This one's going to put it into a word cloud for us. You're getting some small town feel, rural, variety of architecture, pedestrian friendly, shopping, main thoroughfare. So that might have to do with the traffic concern potentially, or just it is a main route through town to keep in mind.
And the larger the word, explain the larger the word.
Yeah, this one really, let's see if I can change it real fast. Yeah. So if the words are larger on here, that means they've been typed in multiple times by someone different. So let's see, close to new developments, small town, equestrian, sophisticated, close to new developments, bucolic, large oak trees. All right, this will be useful. What we'll do with this is I'm able to export these results into an Excel. So it's going to list all of these items that the group here today views as unique attributes. And that will help us determine design elements as we move forward with the project. So I have 32 responses so far. Just so we do stay on track, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the next question. Do raise your hands if you're typing in something immediately. No, it looks like we're good. So the next question is, what are the top 3 challenges or threats facing the district? And again, this is the area defined by you see on the maps, just our study area, the area known as the District of Mayfield. And we don't have to be quiet. We can talk with each other. Very good. I appreciate that. What do we have coming up here? Overpopulation, walkability, increased traffic. Now it's going to start scrolling by itself. We had someone enter a beach again. That's all right. Maybe does it flood or something? I don't know. Okay. Big business, overbuilt, traffic, loss of character. Getting a lot of traffic-related items here and business and development-related items. Too much density and the architectural style not appropriate. Okay. We are gonna have a set of questions that will go into some of these issues that y'all are stating as challenges. So we'll get some additional feedback from that today and the set of questions that's already developed. All right. Okay, we're getting into that 30 range of responses. So I'll just leave it up for a few more seconds. Go ahead and enter your last comments and we'll move on. I'll kind of let 32 be the mark. It seems like that's our participants today. So very good. This is great feedback. And again, the feedback from this, just like most all public planning processes, will be combined into a document for the city of Milton. And it is anonymous. I should have stated that at the beginning. Okay, so what is the desired experience of this location? And images are the existing locations in Milton. The intent is to illustrate a product type only. The building style is not being evaluated. So by that, I mean, if one of these images, the look of that building, the architectural style of that building, you don't personally like, don't vote on that. But if you like it, that it's a mixed-use building, vote on it. And you can click the image on your phone to make it larger. Looks like we're going off the screen here. Let's see if I can get that to go away. There we are. Okay. So based on the 22 votes we have in, commercial cottage is the desired experience with mixed use right there. Okay, we got small scale mixed use and residential is essentially going neck and neck. A good question. So with the images, I determined a 4-story building versus a 4-story building for that. Oh, sorry, I was seeing who asked the question. Just building height is really what I was looking at, the massing of that structure. Right. All right, we got 37 responses on that one. That's great. Okay, and we can see that based on the crowd here today, we have 28% with cottage commercial, and then the others tailing right behind that with mixed use starting at 23%. All right, I'm going to go to the next question now. All right, and I do apologize that the background image makes this hard to read, but it should be more legible on your phones. Do you think the area immediately adjacent to the study area has improved, stayed the same, or declined? There it is. I knew I had a little more text to that. So when you're thinking about this, think of in the last 10 years how the area has changed. And it's the area within our study area as well as immediately adjacent to it. So just the general area of this part of Crabapple where the study area is taking place. How do you think it's developed over the last 10 years? All right, we're getting into the 30 range. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and change that. That's great feedback on that to know where people stand. You don't like the type of construction that you're seeing? Is it about the style of the building? Well, so if you don't like, I would say you probably voted correctly then. If you don't, I mean, as development as a whole, if you don't think it's appropriate, then it's not appropriate for this area, even though it's of quality. Or that you personally saw it as quality, as you stated. I didn't want to put words in your mouth. All right, so we got 40 responses on that. That's good. So as I stated, that was just initial feedback, area as a whole, general comments. Now it's a little bit of foundational information as to how we are approaching this project. The first part is looking at those existing conditions, and part of that is looking at the existing regulatory documents that are affecting this area, and why is it that we're here today. So we have been studying and looking at your current form-based code, which we're in the crabapple form-based code district. And in this area, we're in mostly all T4 open. And some T5 with a civic site there. But what is that general intent? If you haven't done it before, I would invite everyone in this room to look at your zoning code for crabapple. And one of the first things on there is the intent. When staff, planning commission, and stakeholders were developing this code, they developed an intent for the code. And part of that is items A through O are what they hope to achieve through this. Some of those things are that developed patterns should enable children to walk or bicycle to school. Buildings and landscapes should contribute to the physical definition of the thoroughfares, meaning those buildings should front the streets, parking should be in the rear. It should be about engaging the pedestrian on the sidewalk, and that's the primary interest and not the vehicle. So not creating essentially what we call in the industry road sewers, where it's just high-speed traffic, but actually creating neighborhood environments. And so that's a general sum of what the intent of this code is. I've also included in your packet, or have included in your packet, some tables, some kind of go-to tables. When a planner is presented with a job or a developer in the crabapple neighborhood, these are some of the first charts that they might go and look at. And there's some of the things that might be of concern to people today for the area that we're studying. And that is what we see on table 5, which is the building form, which regulates the height of structures and how that's measured. Also looking at building functions with T4 open. So let me back up a little bit. So most of the area is in T4, right? So we go to that T4 column on table 8. But before we read down on those, we notice that it states in T4 open, T5 function regulations apply. So that means for most of our area, the functions are regulated by what we see in the T5 column. So take a look at that, just so we all have a working knowledge of what can happen here. And how that density works that you'll see in table 8. Again, I'm not going to get too much into the details of explaining it, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. However, if we do have some questions, we have appropriate city staff and our zoning directors here today to make sure we can answer your questions. But kind of the most useful chart here is what we see on table 11B. And that is the T4 general overview. So this is pulling some of the most relevant aspects from the code and putting it on a convenient, easy to read chart here. So this is giving us everything from our maximum building heights that you see under item K, building form. It's summing up what we saw on that table 5. It's reviewing our building placements and our setback requirements as well, and our frontage requirements. So as we go through the rest of this presentation, and as we look at some of concepts that are only for discussion only, that were developed based on the existing code, take a look at these charts, and because we'll be using some of these terms as to why certain design decisions were made on these test sites, if you will. Robin, anything to add to the kind of general overview?
So one might ask, well, what's really the difference? We only have a little bit of T4, and then you have T4 open. What's the difference between that? And it really is the allowable uses. It's not so much the metric of the development standards, like what's the front setback, what's the side setback. All that is basically the same, the height. But it's really the uses that are permitted within those buildings. That's the difference between T4 open and T4. Obviously, a civic site here, as you see, is the Broadwell Pavilion and the open space that's available to the general population. T5 is a little bit more intense. You see it at the corner of Mayfield and Birmingham Highway and Broadwell and Crabapple. And so the density permitted is increased from the T4. So for example, and just to make it simple, T4 allows 5 units per acre. So you think about units as residential uses. So I'll just use that as a comparison. I'm not going to get into the it's a little bit complicated to transfer it to non-residential, but so T4 allows for 5 units per acre, but if you go to the T5, it's 9 units per acre. So that's almost a 100% increase in the density. So that's really what dictates or the difference between the T4 and T5. And the difference between T4 and T4 open really is based on different uses that are permitted. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So T4, we look more for residential. So if you go to the page 7-41, this table 8A, and if you look at T4, it divides the different uses: residential, lodging, office, retail. And I would say the biggest limitation would be the amount of retail allowed in a regular T4. So if you go to D and you go across the T4, it says the building area available for retail use is limited to the first story of buildings at corner locations, not more than 1 per block. The specific use shall be further limited to neighborhood store or food service, seating no more than 30. Retail functions are prohibited and T4 restricted, which that's not on this map. That's somewhere else. So it's fairly limited about what you can do with retail in T4, whereas there's much more flexibility in T4 open. So,
All right.
It is. No. So this, actually TSW worked on creating this code, and it was adopted in 2012. And so that is basically what it has been. There's been a few little tweaks over the years, but as far as the density, the location of the transect zones, all that has remained the same since 2012. So I think looking at, it'll be determined, but, if this becomes what we call an overlay district, it would almost be like having the icing on the cake. And the cake is the form-based code, and the overlay is the icing that goes over the cake. It doesn't negate what's underneath it. It works with it. Or, it may be something where, at the end of this project, we look, okay, we maybe need to tweak this or that within the code. But that'll all be a public that'll be a public process. That's why we're here today. And even at the end of the schedule, there is state law requires that any kind of zoning changes have to meet certain requirements. So everything's out in the open. So. Well, that's what we're going to look at. I think that's it was suggested that we look into it, and we may or may not change that or add icing or change what the cake contents are. But that's what this process is going to determine.
The next exercise you're going to do, I think, will help us start to make that determination. what you're about to do.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
So the next, actually, before we get to the exercise, we want to share an exercise that we did in-house prior to this meeting. And that is, we looked at the study area and selected a sample parcels, honestly. So there's really, when we see what the concept that we drew and the parcels that we chose, it was really about a sample site. And that's all it is. And it was a sample site to see what could happen with the existing code if these parcels were developed. Let's see, is it not going? Let's see here. Oh, I forgot. I had a couple more slides after that. So we'll just real quick. Other studies that we're looking at, Tom mentioned it earlier, the downtown Crabapple placemaking plan. Again, the study area that we're looking at is down here. We can see that that plan only proposed a few things on it at that corner parcel there by the old commercial building, or historic commercial building rather. But we took a dive into that, as well as other plans that in ongoing work that may affect this area are listed here and are also on our radar to acknowledge during plan development. So those are on the screen there. Now, as I was starting to introduce, sorry about that, were the concepts that we prepared in-house. And again, these we selected these parcels that you see in the rust color for our sample site. So we're picking on these parcels today for only hypothetical discussion purposes. And it's only intended to provide one idea for that discussion. And this is based on existing code. So today, if a developer had these these parcels and wanted to develop something, what you see on the screen is plausible. Now, again, I'll state, if you still have your phone up, this should be on your phone. So if you want to zoom in and look at something. But this concept 1A was developed as if the parcels maintained their current ownership, and they're only consolidated if they neighbored the same owner. So we divided these into 3 areas. Area 1 being the greatest mass that you see here. It kind of hugs the property of area that we identify as Area 2, which by tax records has it as a separate property owner. And then Area 3 as a single property owner. With these, we are maxing it out on purpose to see what is plausible. So for Area 1 is maxed out. It's a total area of 3.07 acres at a density of 9 units an acre. Now that is with buying TDRs, transfer development rights. And so Robin stated earlier that the T4, you may be thinking, she said, well, hey, that maxed out at 5, correct?
Right.
But theoretically, a person could go and buy TDRs from the city and increase their density to 9 units an acre and do this plan that you see here. And that means each of these areas are maxed out at 9 units an acre, or as close as we could to still park it and make it plausible. So this Area 2 is maxed out at 7 units an acre. Yep, and so that has 3 dwelling units on it. It's a mixed-use building with 3 townhouses above retail on the ground floor. That's what these buildings are. So those would be built out at 3 stories for that. And then Area 3 has some 4plexes on it for a total of 12 units on the site, putting it at a density of 8 units an acre. So while it's unlikely it is plausible to buy TDRs and create the developments that you see here, with the massings not going above 3 floors, meeting the code, no variance request needed other than purchasing those TDRs. Again, these are just for conversation's sake to see what can happen. And think about when you're looking at these, what about these plans might not you like or just personally don't like about them that the code is allowing today, because we are going to get your feedback on that. This is concept 1B. And with this, we're going all hypothetical. Okay, one developer came in and bought all this land, one landowner now. What can happen? In Still Park, no variances, only buying TDRs. And this is the plan that was developed. So we're looking at, again, 3-story buildings along Mayfield. Actually, this is a very real product type here, and this could either be at 1 floor or 2 floors, depending on how big you wanted those residential units to be. But the massing there could be 2 stories, ground floor active use as required by the code there, with a residential use up top. On Mid-Broadwell, because we were maxing out our density here on Mayfield, we originally had some townhouses here, but we had to pull back because we couldn't ask for any more density because we're already buying TDRs. So that's why we have small lot, single family detached there. And then the parcel across the street with townhouses and a small commercial building, as you see there. Yeah.
What is the green?
So the area right here? It's left as open space. There is no need to disturb the land because we're maxing out all of our density along the road frontage as directed by the code. So is there direct,
There is,
can you
any-
explain that
Any
one?
development that is 4 acres or larger has to provide 5% of green space. Well, it would be if it was, I mean, I think at least on the right side, it would be probably 4 acres. I'm not
This
sure
is,
about the
we're
south.
right under it. We're at 3.7.
Okay, but they're still
Per
providing,
GIS.
I mean, actually, they're still providing green space because they don't have any more density to build buildings. So just by default,
Right.
those would be kept as green space, even though the code wouldn't have required it, so. Right. Well, that'll be.
So
ultimately
for
up to the
this
property
test
owner.
site, we didn't look at those. For this hypothetical, we didn't look at those buildings. So again, for this conversation, we're just picking on these parcels that you see that we've drawn over.
Yeah, we looked at what was maybe susceptible to change versus, and we think those little historic building, the bike shop would stay. That'd be some, from a historic standpoint, it should stay and give that character to downtown Milton. And that building on the corner is so important that you don't want to lose it because that's part of what
Right.
Milton is.
That's right.
Sure. Yeah. We're not, again, this is just hypothetical. We're just.
And then we have one more plan based on the existing code for conversation's sake. And this is, what if no existing buildings were torn down and it was a pure infill development or build out? What could happen and what densities would be allowed with that buildable area? So what you see on the screen here for area, or we actually broke them down into building footprints here because the areas are small. So the area north of Mid-Broadwell is we have the mixed-use building on Broadwell, and that is with ground floor active use with the townhouse product above it. So a 3-story structure, townhouses on Mid-Broadwell, where previously we had the single family. We were able to do the townhouses because the density allowed for it. And then you see we shrunk this development where it was 3 of the 4-plex buildings. We can now only get 2 of those with a accessory use at the rear because of our land shrunk by maintaining the structure there. So again, the next part here is we have 2 questions are going to be asked for each of these plans. And that's why I wanted everyone to kind of be thinking about what aspects of these plans do you like and what don't you like? Because this is giving us feedback on the current code. And this is going to help us and the person who is going to be assisting with that code analysis to determine direction and appropriate next steps if additional feedback is needed, which it will be, and it'll help them guide what that feedback should be, I should say. Yes, ma'am. Well, and that's the hypothetical here. And so my intent with sharing these 3 concepts based on what can happen with existing code and no variances is to get feedback on what should really happen here. These plans they're not intended as proposed concepts. They're intended only for discussion, to get feedback, to direct us to that what will ultimately be the concept 2, which is going to be developed based on everyone's comments. So these are based on, again, the existing code to get feedback on how that code should change. We just wanted to put a visual with it so you could see what somebody could do today, theoretically. Okay. Absolutely. You should be able to hit refresh if you're on the same web page. You should be able to hit refresh and it will bring you right to the current slide. But for those who do need the code again, go to menti.com, mentin.com, and the code is 378, excuse me, I'm going to start the code again, 37580154.
Yeah, and like I went on to Google and I kept on losing it, but if you go to tabs on the bottom, it'll come up and then you just push on the tab that you were on. So it's.
And so this question is set up as a scale. That first development that we looked at, theoretical development should say, how do you feel about that one on a scale of 1 to 6? Where do you fall? So we got the comment earlier that it felt like there's already too much development in the area, and maybe that's just adding to it. So you'd vote on the lower numbers there. Was this line right here? Yeah. That was illustrating a pedestrian path that was going through. The artist got a little too detailed. We don't want to look at that. We want to look at the building's forms and mass building layouts on this one. So it looks like I have 25 responses. I want to get into that 30 range. Let's see. Looks like people are voting 3, so keeping it see it as average. Okay. Oh, there we are. So these are the results. So we've had, as you can see, 8 people have voted for 3, 14 for not. Oh, why isn't this updating? Let's see. The average vote is 2.8. Okay. Does this development option feel appropriate? So this one, how do you?
No, you just look
No,
individually.
just the one
You're
that's
going
on
to get
the
all 3
screen.
of them. You're going to get all 3.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next question for this option. Again, the image might be a little small, but if you want to zoom into something, you should be able to click on that image if you want to look at an aspect of there. But this is an important one, and you can fill in, send multiple responses. Are there specific items of concern here? So maybe it's the product type that you see. Maybe it's the amount of massing that you see on the street or the amount of development that you see. Or maybe you want to see more development allowed on this area. Let us know how you feel about this one. That's great. So we're seeing too many townhouses, so that helps us. Too many curb cuts off Mayfield, or along Mayfield, excuse me. The loss of older buildings, it's good feedback. Use the digital scroll, there they go. The density. There's another comment mentioning about the loss of the older homes there that exist. Good, so we're almost in that 30 range, so I'm going to leave this question up a little more, please. And again, you can submit as many items of concern as you feel appropriate until we go to the next screen. Density facing Mayfield is too high. That's a good specific comment. Too dense, so you want to see more green space. So we're seeing trends here. And again, what we'll do when we get this back to the office, I'll export all these results and categorize them into similar columns to see where we're overlapping on here. That's good. Okay, so we got into the 30 range. If you're working on something, raise your hand and I won't click the screen, but it looks like we have a couple of comments. Okay, good. All right. Okay. We're doing good on time too. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the next one. So these two questions are going to be asked for the remaining concepts. So you're going to see the next question duplicated. Again, this is for the concept shown on the screen. Does this development option feel appropriate? And you might have the same answer as you did for the previous one. That's all right. Cursor to see where votes are falling. Again, the lower numbers are for not appropriate, 6 being most appropriate. Okay, good. We're almost in that 30 range.
Obviously, they want it on the street.
So about regulating potentially a greater setback or, yeah. And so those, if we're seeing that feedback and then that's the common trend, then that will start the conversation of a potential overlay and what might change. But a setback that is definitely something that could be regulated more intensely. All right, I think we have 32 responses, and it looks like our chart has settled down. So this one averaged a little higher at 3.3. I think the last one was still a 2 point something. Okay, so the next question is going to be that fill in the blank. Are there any specific items of concern with this one? And again, you might have the same comment as you did for the previous. You might still feel it's
These units have apartments
too
above them,
developed.
right? The units above.
there's are mixed use buildings, yes,
So would they be
on
more,
Mayfield.
would they be more workforce housing in your mind? Those are,
I mean, that's not what this is about. We're purely what's allowed by code. Let's see what we have coming in here. Cookie cutter architecture, all right. Well, again, we haven't gotten into the style of these, but let's see. More of a village feel. I like lesser density than prior. I'll get my hand off of that, see if it'll start scrolling. Still too dense, lack of access to parking. Not unique to, why isn't this scrolling? Guess I'll have to do this one manual. Again, loss of the older buildings, yep. We are removing those for this concept. Loss of character. So it looks like we're getting kind of a character theme here, wanting it to be more of a village layout, not kind of what is viewed here as a typical straight layout on the roads. We do not need additional restrictions, use current code. Another historic comment, okay. And then traffic, another traffic comment. All right, looks like our feedback has slowed down on this one. We got 25 responses. Oh, it did? Let me change that real fast. I don't want to shut it off. I'm afraid it will lose. If that doesn't work, let me know. I'm afraid to go back to the website and it will reset the number and that will just cause too much trouble for the audience. So if you can just probably hit that reset and enter another response. Yes, sir? Uh-huh. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's a great observation there. And I think some of it is looking at the overall, and then when we enable these individual comments, we're getting very specific comments, right? And so this is telling us where we really need to focus and fine tune certain items, but we like the general direction, but here are some items we need to tweak. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. All right. Then we're going to go to the next one now. Yes. Mm-hmm. homeowners that live in a home are well, I think we'll have that on the sign-in sheet, correct? We'll have those.
We have contact numbers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have no opposition if everyone's fine with doing that.
So raise your hand if you listen. If you're a homeowner.
No, in the
No,
district.
I know there's not that many homeowners in the district. In the district of Mayfield.
Yeah, you guys. Wait. Do you live in one of these parcels?
Yeah.
Keep saying in the district, in this district. How many homeowners in the district?
Right.
Then how many homeowners we got that live in Milton? Don't live in Milton. How about adjacent to the district? Adjacent to the district. How many homeowners are adjacent to the district? This is DRB, I care about the district and the adjacent vote. That's what my. So maybe now I ask, how many hands of people live in the district? Basically. Which helps me understand the traffic and some of these comments we're getting. I'm a developer of 50 on ERB. That's what I'm here. Don't live in the district and they're not adjacent to the.
Yeah, you're nearby, yeah.
Just so everybody knows, this is the front row, is the steering committee, and they're on BCA, planning commission, and DRB. We're the three groups that started this. That helps me see these comments clearer, which is,
Mm-hmm.
and if you live there and you're adjacent, you are concerned about traffic. You are higher level of concern on those issues. It's miles away, you may want to come down and go to the restaurant. Take it right there, it's fine.
Not necessarily, I live in Kensington Farms, just, but you still. But yeah, still,
And that's why I want to see the traffic and see some of these, where are these comments coming from? I don't want to sit and be checking this and stuff.
But just to be clear, while we're having these meetings, like right now, this can be done without, I can do all this right now. Not being an okay from anybody in the city. So all of your fears that you're talking about there, those could all be a reality without anybody having to say. That's why we're having this meeting. How to make sure.
So let us finish, because I think the last slide is going to be an important example. That might want to see the responses on this one versus what.
Right. So let's get some feedback on this last concept, and then the next part of the presentation, we're diving into what is that preferred concept, and that's the feedback question that I think most of the people in the room are waiting for. See where things are falling right now. So again, this is the concept that is pure infill, working with the available open space now, no existing structures torn down. Okay, we have 26 responses, 28 responses. This one's kind of averaging similar to the last one.
Which I'm shocked at. I thought it was going to be the way I'm shocked by this one.
Okay, we got into the 30 range. We're at 34 responses with an average of 3. It's very good. Still, Got 13 responses on the absolutely not appropriate and 7 responses for most appropriate.
Can't wait to see the next answers.
Again, same question as the previous ones. What are the negative aspects? What you see of this plan? Are there specific items of concern? See what we have so far. We have 5 responses. Appearance of higher density. Going to be packed. Get through. So again, the traffic comment. It looks like, again, we're not scrolling, so I'll do it manual. Too much residential. Hard to tell without knowing what the exteriors look like. So for that, just, know that Milton has a very high standard for elevation. So assume it's going to be quality, because nothing's going to get past City Hall without it being a quality elevation. But we're really looking at what could be built here. So these uses. So we can put a mixed use building up on Mayfield. We can get some townhouses and some multifamily residential on the other street there. Least creative, current code should be used. Too many townhouses. Okay, so what do we have? 24 responses so far. Traffic. Does not create the overall desire for the area. All right, I'm getting too old. That screen's too far away. Provides minimal change, improvement to the existing area. Need to preserve the feel of historic crabapple. All right, so we got 26 responses. Looks like we've slowed down. Raise your hand if you're wrapping up, okay? Kind of scroll back through them so we kind of see what's coming in, or has already been submitted, rather. We'd like to have walkable downtown with lots of stores and places to eat, similar to Roswell. Need more non-residential uses. All right. Everybody good, I think? That's a good comment. We got 27 responses on that one. All right. So that's the end of that. What could happen with the existing code? Now we're on, so that's what we called concept 1. Concept 1 was what could happen on the existing code. That was our hypothetical to get feedback on what items we should focus on code-wise. Concept 2, this is the main event. This is the concept that's going to be developed from the input to develop the preferred concept. This is the first time we're getting input, so y'all are going to initiate this process, which will have about it will have 2 more opportunities for public input. That will likely be hosted here at City Hall, but again, please keep check of your emails and the city website for those dates. So concept 2, as I stated, this is to develop a preferred plan based on your input and identify where preferred plan conflicts with the existing code. And what I mean by that is this code for our preferred plan, we get to live in a developer's dream and just do what we think is best for this area. And what I mean by that is based on your input. So provide the input to help direct the concept development. Based on your input today, Tom and I will review with city staff and develop the initial concept plan based on that input. That is not restricted or binded purely by the code. That concept that we develop will be brought back and presented at a public open house for everybody to view and comment on, and we'll continue the refinement process. So again, I just want to reiterate how the process is, how we're going to approach developing concept 2. And with that, we've already started getting some kind of common themes on feedback, but I'm going to ask it again. Is there an existing building type that defines this district? Do know this is a 2-part question. If you answer yes, the next question is going to ask you to state what that building is. But I want to see what the general feeling is in the audience. If someone feels there is a specific building type that defines this area, or maybe not, in your opinion, let us know. Got 19 responses so far. Doing good on time, okay. We actually started this one right on time with the agenda.
You're good. I think you got the numbers.
Good, yeah, we got up to 30, okay. So we're in the 30 range. Everyone submitted. Raise your hand if you need a moment, okay? Let's go to the next question. Because we do want to close this session with open conversation, so I want to make sure we leave time for that. So if you answered yes, again, select one of these building types that is found there. If you answered no on the last question, please answer NA. Well, it's because we're directing this question is, the previous one was, is there a building there that defines it? So maybe I selected historic commercial, or thought the historic commercial defines that. This question, then I would select historic commercial because I feel that building defines that. That's an existing building within the area. So historic cottage refers to like the string of 3 cottages on Mayfield. I think 2 are businesses right now and 1 is vacant. So it's the older residential houses, historic houses. All right, looks like we're getting close to 30. We're at 28 responses so far. Correct. We're looking at the district as a whole now.
It includes buildings, it includes cottage,
Mm-hmm.
it's bigger than just what we've been voting.
And it's brand new. This is what you all would like to see, or your opinion on it, not
So what you
the proposals.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
it's
Robin.
fine.
I was just going to say, so what you see in the red parcels on the printed out maps and what was on the screen 2 slides ago. So the whole district of Mayfield. All right, we're at 30. Okay, so based on the audience today, the historic cottages is the building type that they feel best defines the area, with the historic commercial coming in second there. Okay, that helps us to know what buildings we should be paying attention to as we develop this preferred concept. So in relation to those historic cottages, obviously buildings that are over 50 years, I think 2 of those cottages are 1920s and 1 is from 1900. How important is it for new buildings, new construction, to fit in or relate to those historic structures that are 50 years or older in terms of building form and placement? And what I mean by this, I want to explain it a little bit, coming at it from a preservation sense. So if I'm a developer and I bought a parcel next door to one of those historic cottages, should my building be regulated in mass and height so not to overpower that historic cottage next door? That's what this question is asking. Where do you fall in that? Do you think that's appropriate, or do you think that's not appropriate? To regulate new construction to appropriately fit in with historic structures. And the reason I put 50 years or older is that's how the National Register defines historic, if a building is 50 years or older. Okay, we have 29 responses so far. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead. Looks like we're slowed down. Raise your hands if you had complications. Okay, that's very good. So we had 31 responses. Let's see where those numbers lay. Let's see. Okay, we have 15 votes. That very important to acknowledge this, with the average being a 4.5. All right. So I do want to explain this one again before you start answering it, but should allowed building functions be limited in the district? What I mean by this, the code, building functions by code are those allowed uses there. And so should we limit the amount or the square footage of retail, lodging, office space? Right now we're T4 open, which puts you in the T5 category. Should that be restricted more than left in that open category? Or not open, but the T5 category? And please do raise your hand again if you have questions or comments. We have the appropriate staff here today to help answer any questions that might be confusing with the code to help you best answer this question. All right, we have 27 responses so far. All right, we got into that 30 range. It looks like we might be slowing down on responses. All right, so 19 yes, 12 no. I'm going to go to the next question so we stay on track. This is an open-ended one. So to that, if you answered yes, what specifically do you think should be limited? Should it be the retail that's limited, the residential that's limited? Explain, and you can expand on this. If you think it's no townhouses, say you should limit townhouses here. We want to get your feedback on what you think is appropriate for a proposed development at this location. Or what you feel is not appropriate, excuse me. So what you feel is not appropriate here, what function should be limited? All right, so we got 14 and we're starting to scroll now. Seeing townhouses pop up quite a bit. All right, no single family homes. No townhouses, no fourplexes. Like it's going on, no rental. Single family residence. Okay, so, I don't know what it's doing there. All right, we got 22 responses so far.
Yeah.
All right, raise your hand if you're still typing in responses. All right, so I think I'm going to go on to the next question. So this is just scrolling around so you can see what's happening there. So we got 24 responses on that. Looks like we got some good feedback. Now we're going on to open space. So is there a desire for programmed open space at this location? It might be a pocket park, which by code, a pocket park is 60 by 60 space minimal. Again, these are going to help us determine what should be included in that preferred concept plan. Following there. Very good. So we almost got 30. We're at 29 responses. Average 5 coming in, 16 strongly agree, 2 strongly disagree. All right. Very good. Looks like that has slowed down. Okay. Go on to the next one. And I believe this is the last question we have for this segment, which is good because we're running out of time. Let me explain this a little bit. Is there a desire to have a mid-block pedestrian connectivity between the library, which in this image you see right here, and the pavilion, which is just right off screen on the other side of this batch of trees? Do you like to see a pedestrian connection through there? So essentially a connection from mid-Broadwell to the library to allow pedestrians that easy access on a trail. Do you strongly agree or disagree with including something like that in the preferred concept plan? All right, good. We're almost at 30 responses there. It looks like we have 17 strongly agree with 2 strongly disagreeing on this one. Very good. We just hit 30. Okay. Raise your hand if you need one more minute. All right. Looks like we're good. Okay, perfect. Let me get my agenda back out. So, as I've been kind of reiterating through this process, is that all the input today is going to help develop that concept too. One thing that I haven't stated and I just overlooked is that there will be 2 concept 2s to choose from. Just like there were 3 concept 1s in A, B, and C, there will be 2 concept 2s. There will be an A and a B based on this input. And so we will work with staff to evaluate the input, and then Tom and I will put pencils to paper and develop that as guided by our stakeholders and our city staff today. And then that concept will be shown publicly at the next meeting. And Shubha, do you have that date? February 9th is the next meeting. That's where concept 2A and concept 2B will be shared. And that will be the concept formed by this input. And then all the public will be invited to comment on that directly before it goes for another round of refinement. So do note that February 9th in this room, Shubha? Yep, in this room. Same time? Yes. same time and place. Again, just check the city calendar. Okay, so with that known and knowing what our next steps are, with our remaining time, we have 30 minutes. Please do not get up and run away. We still want to talk. So our next part here is in-person interaction. We have 3 boards set up around the room. of the study area and the parcels identified for the District of Mayfield. We have markers and Post-it notes, and someone from the project team will be at each of these boards. We welcome small group conversation. Please draw on it, the board, circle something, make a note, stick a Post-it on there, as you would at kind of previous planning meetings that you would have been at for input. But we're looking to get that one-on-one and small conversation feedback right now. We'll break from here.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I see maybe, I think people,
All right.
so next meeting,
Absolutely. And I do apologize. I personally overlooked that. So I do apologize. And for the input today, if you did not have access for the input activity today, please come and see me. I'll give you my contact information because we do need your feedback.
I mean, it's hard work just getting several sitting right here.
Yep.
And if 10 people here. If
Yep.
they're here, you want them to participate.
Absolutely. And we're going to continue that with the small discussion, but thank you for bringing that up. Seriously, yeah, that was, please do see me if you were not able to participate. I apologize. All right. Any other questions before we break into small group discussion? All right. If not, I think we're going to break. I'm going to venture over to this one. Tom, do you want to take this board here? And then Shuba will be at the board in the back. So feel free to, if you want to talk to each of us, walk around to each of us or go to the one where you feel most comfortable. And thank you so much for all your feedback today.